Dr. Sage here, back to continue our discussion on the tissue level of organization. Today's topic, connective tissue. By the end of this video, you should be able to identify and distinguish between the types of connective tissue, proper, supportive, and fluid, and explain the functions of connective tissues. As may be obvious from its name, one of the major functions of connective tissue is to connect tissues and organs. Unlike epithelial tissue, which is composed of cells closely packed with little or no extracellular space in between, connective tissue cells are dispersed in a matrix. The matrix usually includes a large amount of extracellular material produced by the connective tissue cells that are embedded within it. The matrix plays a major role in the functioning of this tissue. The major component of the matrix is a ground substance often crisscrossed by protein fibers. This ground substance is usually a fluid, but it can also be mineralized and solid as in bones. Connective tissues come in a vast variety of forms, yet they typically have in common three characteristic components: cells, large amounts of amorphous ground substance, and protein fibers. The amount and structure of each component correlates with the function of the tissue, from the rigid ground substance and bones supporting the body to the inclusion of specialized cells. For example, a phagocytic cell that engulfs pathogens and also rids tissues of cellular debris. Connective tissues perform many functions in the body, but most importantly, they support and connect other tissues. From the connective tissue sheath that surrounds muscle cells, to the tendons that attach muscles to bones, and to the skeleton that supports the positions of the body. Protection is another major function of connective tissue, in the form of fibrous capsules and bones that protect delicate organs, and of course, the skeletal system. Specialized cells in connective tissue defend the body from microorganisms that enter the body. Transport of fluid, nutrients, waste, and chemical messengers is ensured by specialized fluid connective tissues such as blood and lymph. Adipose cells store surplus energy in the form of fat and contribute to the thermal insulation of the body. All connective tissues derive from the mesodermal layer of the embryo. The first connective tissue to develop in the embryo is mesenchyme, the stem cell line from which all connective tissues are later derived. Clusters of mesenchymal cells are scattered throughout adult tissue and supply the cells needed for replacement and repair after a connective tissue injury. A second type of embryonic connective tissue forms in the umbilical cord, called mucous connective tissue or Wharton's jelly. This tissue is no longer present after birth, leaving only scattered mesenchymal cells throughout the body. The three broad categories of connective tissue are classified according to the characteristics of their ground substance and the types of fibers found within the matrix. These would be connective tissue proper, supportive connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue. So, connective tissue proper includes loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue. In loose connective tissue, the fibers are loosely organized, leaving large spaces in between. Dense connective tissue is reinforced by bundles of fibers that provide tensile strength, elasticity, and protection. Supportive connective tissue provides structure and strength to the body and protects soft tissues. This would be bone and cartilage. In bone, the matrix is rigid and described as calcified because of the deposited calcium salts. In fluid connective tissue, various specialized cells circulate in a watery fluid containing salts, nutrients, and dissolved proteins. This would be the lymph and the blood. So, for connective tissue proper, fibroblasts are present in all connective tissue proper. Fibrocytes, adipocytes, and mesenchymal cells are fixed cells, which means they remain within the connective tissue. Other cells move in and out of the connective tissue in response to chemical signals. Macrophages, mast cells, lymphocytes, plasma cells, and phagocytic cells are found in connective tissue proper, but are actually part of the immune system protecting the body. The most abundant cell in connective tissue proper is the fibroblast. Polysaccharides and proteins secreted by fibroblasts combine with extracellular fluids to produce a viscous ground substance that, with embedded fibrous proteins, forms the extracellular matrix. Fibrocyte, a less active form of fibroblast, is the second most common cell type in connective tissue proper. Adipocytes are cells that store lipids as droplets that fill most of the cytoplasm. There are two basic types of adipocytes, white and brown. The brown adipocytes store lipids as many droplets and have high metabolic activity. In contrast, white fat adipocytes store lipids as a single large droplet and are metabolically less active. Their effectiveness at storing large amounts of fat is witnessed in obese individuals. The number and the type of adipocytes depends on the tissue and location and vary among individuals in the population. The mesenchymal cell is a multipotent adult stem cell. These cells can differentiate into any type of connective tissue cells needed for repair and healing of damaged tissues. The macrophage cell is a large cell derived from a monocyte, a type of blood cell, which enters the connective tissue matrix from the blood vessels. The macrophage cells are an essential component of the immune system, which is the body's defense against potential pathogens and degraded host cells. When stimulated, macrophages release cytokines, small proteins that act as chemical messengers. Cytokines recruit other cells of the immune system to infected sites and stimulate their activities. Roaming or free macrophages move rapidly by amoeboid movement, engulfing infectious agents and cellular debris. In contrast, fixed macrophages are permanent residents of their tissues. The mast cells found in connective tissue proper has many cytoplasmic granules. These granules contain the chemical signals histamine and heparin. When irritated or damaged, mast cells release histamine, an inflammatory mediator, which causes vasodilation and increased blood flow at a site of injury or infection. Along with itching, swelling, and redness, you recognize as an allergic response. Like blood cells, mast cells are derived from hematopoietic stem cells and are part of the immune system. Three main types of fibers are secreted by fibroblasts: collagen fibers, elastic fibers, and reticular fibers. Collagen fiber is made from fibrous protein subunits linked together to form a long and straight fiber. Collagen fibers, while flexible, have great tensile strength, resist stretching, and give ligaments and tendons their characteristic resilience and strength. These fibers hold connective tissues together even during the movement of the body. Elastic fiber contains the protein elastin along with lesser amounts of other proteins and glycoprotein. The main property of elastin is that after being stretched or compressed, it will return to its original shape. Elastic fibers are prominent in elastic tissues found in skin and the elastic ligaments of the vertebral column. Reticular fibers are also formed from the same protein subunits as collagen fibers. However, these fibers remain narrow and are arrayed in a branching network. They are found throughout the body, but are most abundant in the reticular tissue of soft organs, such as the liver and spleen, where they anchor and provide structural support to the parenchyma, the functional cells, blood vessels, and nerves of the organ. All of these fiber types are embedded in ground substance. Secreted by fibroblasts, ground substance is made of polysaccharides, specifically hyaluronic acid and proteins. These combine to form a proteoglycan with a protein core and polysaccharide branches. The proteoglycan attracts and traps available moisture, forming the clear, viscous, colorless matrix you now know as ground substance. Loose connective tissue is found between many organs where it acts both to absorb shock and bind tissues together. It allows water, salts, and various nutrients to diffuse through to adjacent or embedded cells and tissues. One type of loose connective tissue is adipose tissue. Adipose tissue consists mostly of fat storage cells with little extracellular matrix. A large number of capillaries allow rapid storage and mobilization of lipid molecules. White adipose tissue is most abundant. It can appear yellow and owes its color to keratin and related pigments from plant food. White fat contributes mostly to lipid storage and can serve as insulation from cold temperatures and mechanical injuries. White adipose tissue can be found protecting the kidneys and cushioning the back of the eye. Brown adipose tissue is more common in infants, hence the term baby fat. In adults, there is a reduced amount of brown fat and is found mainly in the neck and clavicular regions of the body. The many mitochondria in the cytoplasm of brown adipose tissue help explain its efficiency at metabolizing stored fat. Brown adipose tissue is thermogenic, meaning that as it breaks down fats, it releases metabolic heat rather than producing ATP, a key molecule used in metabolism. Areolar tissue shows little specialization. It contains all the cell types and fibers previously described and is distributed in random, web-like fashion. It fills the spaces between muscle fibers, surrounds blood and lymph vessels, and supports organs in the abdominal cavity. Areolar tissue underlies most epithelia and represents the connective tissue component of epithelial membranes. Reticular tissue is a mesh-like supportive framework for soft organs such as lymphatic tissue, the spleen, and the liver. Reticular cells produce the reticular fibers that form the network onto which other cells attach. It derives its name from the Latin reticulus, which means little net. Dense connective tissue contains more collagen fibers than does loose connective tissue. As a consequence, it displays a greater resistance to stretching. There are two major categories of dense connective tissue, regular and irregular. Dense, regular connective tissue fibers are parallel to each other, enhancing tensile strength and resistance to stretching in the direction of the fiber orientation. Ligaments and tendons are made of dense, regular connective tissue, but in ligaments, not all fibers are parallel. Dense, regular elastic tissue contains elastin fibers in addition to collagen fibers, which allows the ligament to return to its original length after stretching. The ligaments in the vocal folds and between the vertebrae in the vertebral column are elastic. In dense, irregular connective tissue, the direction of fibers is random. This arrangement gives the tissues greater strength in all directions and less strength in one particular direction. In some tissues, fibers crisscross and form a mesh. In other tissues, stretching in several directions is achieved by alternating layers where fibers run in the same orientation in each layer, and it is the layers themselves that are stacked at an angle. The dermis of the skin is an example of dense, irregular connective tissue rich in collagen fibers. Dense, irregular elastic tissue gives arterial walls the strength and the ability to regain original shape after stretching. Two major forms of supportive connective tissue, cartilage and bone, allow the body to maintain its posture and protect internal organs. The distinctive appearance of cartilage is due to polysaccharides called chondroitin sulfates, which bind to the ground substance proteins to form proteoglycans. Embedded within the cartilage matrix are chondrocytes, or cartilage cells, and the space they occupy are called lacunae. A layer of dense, irregular connective tissue, the perichondrium, encapsulates the cartilage. Cartilaginous tissue is avascular, thus all nutrients need to diffuse through the matrix to reach the chondrocytes. This is a factor contributing to the very slow healing of cartilaginous tissue. There are three main types of cartilage tissue are hyaline cartilage, fibrocartilage, and elastic cartilage. Hyaline cartilage, the most common type of cartilage in the body, consists of short and dispersed collagen fibers and contains large amounts of proteoglycans. Under the microscope, tissue samples appear clear. The surface of the hyaline cartilage is smooth. Both strong and flexible, it is found in the rib cage and nose and covers bones where they meet to form movable joints. It makes up a template of the embryonic skeleton before bone formation. A plate of hyaline cartilage at the ends of bone allows continued growth until adulthood. Fibrocartilage is tough because it has thick bundles of collagen fibers dispersed through its matrix. Menisci in the knee joint and the intervertebral discs are examples of fibrocartilage. Elastic cartilage contains elastic fibers as well as collagen and proteoglycans. This tissue gives rigid support as well as elasticity. Tug gently at your earlobes and you notice that the lobes return to their original shape. The external ear contains elastic cartilage. Bone is the hardest connective tissue. It provides protection to internal organs and supports the body. Bone's rigid extracellular matrix contains mostly collagen fibers embedded in a mineralized ground substance containing hydroxyapatite, a form of calcium phosphate. Bone is a highly vascularized tissue. Unlike cartilage, bone tissue can recover from injuries in a relatively short time. Cancellous bone looks like a sponge under the microscope and contains empty spaces between trabeculae, or arches of bone proper. It is lighter than compact bone and found in the interior of some bones at the ends of long bones. It is lighter than compact bone and found in the interior of some bones and at the ends of long bones. Compact bone is solid and has greater structural strength. The blood and lymph are fluid connective tissues. Cells circulate in a liquid extracellular matrix. The formed elements circulating in blood are all derived from hematopoietic stem cells located in bone marrow. Erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, transport oxygen and some carbon dioxide. Leukocytes, which are white blood cells, are responsible for defending against potentially harmful microorganisms or molecules. Platelets are cell fragments involved in blood clotting. Some white blood cells have the ability to cross the endothelial layer that lines blood vessels and enter adjacent tissues. Nutrients, salts, and wastes are dissolved in the liquid matrix and transported through the body. Lymph contains a liquid matrix and white blood cells. Lymphatic capillaries are extremely permeable, allowing larger molecules and excess fluid from interstitial spaces to enter the lymphatic vessels. Lymph drains into blood vessels, delivering molecules to the blood that could not otherwise directly enter the bloodstream. In this way, specialized lymphatic capillaries transport absorbed fats away from the intestine and deliver these molecules to the blood. This concludes the lecture on the connective tissues. Next time, we'll continue our discussion on the tissue level of organization. Until next time, this has been Dr. Sage.